Let's settle this once and for all. In my comment section, people love to state that other historical figures like Leopold II of Belgium, Genghis Khan or Joseph Stalin were worse than Adolf Hitler. This tends to be disturbing because they only cite death tolls caused by actions of these people, but never realize that Hitler is rightly disdained for reasons beyond that. He did what he did out of hatred, got millions in one of the most advanced nations on earth to participate and spread this hateful ideology to millions until date. It still pops up to cause problems once in a while. Sure, these leaders all caused death on a massive scale, but here's the cold, hard truth. Hitler wasn't just a killer. He was the architect of the most organized, bureaucratic system of genocide the world has ever seen. This wasn't the chaotic warfare of Genghis Khan, or the bloodthirsty greed of that Belgian thing, Leopold, but the systematic and deliberate extermination of millions, based on a twisted and nonsensical ideology of racial superiority. In this video, we'll go beyond death tolls and dig into unprecedented Hitler's chilling plans, his vision for a global Nazi empire, and why his evil was not just unmatched, but meticulously calculated to destroy entire populations. Stick around if you want to understand why Hitler is, without a doubt, the most evil person in history. Hitler didn't just kill, he designed systems to kill. The Nazi regime was a well-oiled machine of death, and the deaths did not come about as a result of any real threat, but a planned system of killing off harmless people who they disdained as inferior humans. Programs like the Final Solution, the Hunger Plan and Generalplan Ost weren't spontaneous actions. They were planned, debated and executed with chilling precision by Nazi bureaucrats in the halls of power. Germany, one of the most technologically advanced nations in the world at the time, turned genocide into a logistical exercise where trains ran on time, not to save lives, but to end them. Hitler's evil wasn't just in his actions, but in the meticulous, calculated methods he used to exterminate millions. Endlösung der Judenfrage, more commonly known as the Final Solution, stands as the most brutal example of industrialized murder. This wasn't just mass killing, this was the systematic annihilation of the Jewish people, along with other so-called undesirables like Romani people, disabled individuals and political dissidents. Death camps like Auschwitz, Treblinka, Sobibor and Majdanek became factories of death, where human lives were processed like commodities. The scale was unimaginable. Over 6 million Jews were murdered, but the total number of victims was far higher when including others. This was the first time in history that an entire state apparatus was devoted to the total eradication of a people, carried out with chilling bureaucratic efficiency. Most people don't know about the Der Hungerplan or Hunger Plan, but it's just as insidious as the Holocaust. Hitler's regime deliberately aimed to starve 30 million Soviet citizens to death. The Hunger Plan was a genocidal policy designed to clear space for German settlers by depriving occupied populations of food. Millions of people in the Soviet Union were left to die from hunger, as food was confiscated and rerouted to feed the German war effort. Hitler didn't just want military victory. He wanted to wipe entire populations off the map through starvation, turning hunger into a weapon of war. This wasn't collateral damage, it was a deliberate genocide through famine. While the Holocaust is well known, few people realize how monstrous Generalplan Ost, or Master Plan for the East, truly was. This was Hitler's plan to reshape Eastern Europe into a German empire, where Slavic people were to be enslaved, displaced or exterminated. Over 45 million people were targeted for annihilation or enslavement under this plan as part of Hitler's vision for Lebensraum, or living space for the Aryan race. Poland, Ukraine, Russia and other territories would have been depopulated, with surviving locals forced into brutal servitude. Hitler's goal wasn't just to conquer land, it was to erase entire cultures and races from existence, leaving a world divided between German masters and Slavic slaves. This wasn't war, this was a blueprint for a nightmare dystopia. Hitler's evil wasn't just in mass murder. It was in the psychological terror he unleashed. The Nacht- und Nebel Decree, or Night and Fog, authorized the disappearance of political opponents and resistance fighters in occupied Europe. These people didn't just die, they vanished, with no records, no graves and no justice. Families were left with nothing but questions, their loved ones lost forever. This was more than murder. It was a calculated campaign to instill fear across Europe, to make people believe they could vanish at any time, with no one left to mourn or remember them. While the world remembers the Holocaust, The Porajmos, the Nazi genocide of the Romani people, remains largely forgotten. Hitler targeted the Romani alongside Jews, with between 220,000 and 500,000 Romani people exterminated in concentration camps. Just like the Jews, they were stripped of their humanity, rounded up, and sent to die in gas chambers or through forced labor. Their stories are often overshadowed, but their suffering was no less real. This genocide shows the widespread reach of Hitler's racial hatred, extending to any group deemed unworthy of life. Before the Holocaust began, Hitler's regime tested its methods on the most vulnerable, the disabled, the mentally ill, and the chronically sick. The Action T4 program was the Nazis' first experiment in mass murder. Over 200,000 people were killed, gassed, starved, or lethally injected because they were deemed unworthy of life. This program served as a dress rehearsal for the Holocaust, where the Nazis refined their techniques for industrialized murder. Action T4 shows just how methodical and cruel Hitler's vision was. No one was safe, not even the most defenseless. While Hitler was busy exterminating those he deemed impure, he was also engineering a master race through the Lebensborn program. This program aimed to breed racially pure Aryan children through selective breeding. SS officers and women deemed genetically desirable were encouraged to produce as many children as possible. But that's not all. The Nazis also kidnapped children from occupied territories, especially Poland, and forced them into German families to be raised as Aryans. This wasn't just about killing, it was about re-engineering humanity itself, moulding a generation to serve Nazi ideals. While millions of Jews, Romani, and political prisoners were being exterminated, millions more were being enslaved. Concentration camps weren't just death factories, they were also forced labor sites, where prisoners were worked to death. Over 12 million people from occupied countries were forced into backbreaking labor in Nazi-controlled mines, factories, and fields. Jews, Romani, and Slavs were treated as disposable assets, their lives extinguished through exhaustion, malnutrition, and abuse. This wasn't just exploitation, it was slavery on a massive scale, fueling the Nazi war machine. The full horror of the Nazi regime is also seen in the grotesque medical experiments performed on concentration camp prisoners. Josef Mengele, the angel of death at Auschwitz, conducted inhumane experiments on twins, children, and disabled people. Victims were subjected to chemical injections, amputations, and deliberate infections, all in the name of creating a racially pure Aryan population. These weren't medical advancements, they were sadistic torture sessions disguised as science. Thousands died in agony, their bodies desecrated in the pursuit of Nazi racial ideology. Even as his regime crumbled, Hitler's evil continued. In March 1945, as the Allies closed in on Berlin, Hitler issued the Nero Decree, ordering the destruction of all German infrastructure, factories, bridges, and railways. Hitler didn't care about the future of Germany or its people. His final command was to leave Germany in ruins, a scorched earth that would take generations to recover. Hitler's last act wasn't just to destroy his enemies, it was to destroy everything, including his own country. Let's be crystal clear. If Hitler had won, we wouldn't just be talking about a world with more deaths. We'd be living in a global nightmare. The final solution, Generalplan Ost and Hunger Plan, were just the beginning. Slavic people would be slaves, Jews and Romani would be extinct, and the world would be divided into masters and subhumans. Hitler didn't just want to conquer land. He wanted to reshape humanity itself, erasing entire peoples, enslaving the survivors, and leaving nothing but Aryan dominance in his wake. To everyone who thinks they can compare Hitler to other historical figures, let's stop pretending that anyone comes close. Leopold II, Genghis Khan, Winston Churchill, none of them had the deliberate, methodical evil of Adolf Hitler. He didn't just kill. He engineered mass murder on an industrial scale. His final solution, Hunger Plan, Generalplan Ost, and a dozen other programs were designed not just to win a war, but to reshape humanity itself. Hitler's vision was one of global racial domination, forced labor, slavery, and genocide. Entire populations would have been erased, and the survivors would have lived in a nightmare dystopia of masters and slaves. This is why Adolf Hitler remains the most evil person in history. He didn't just want to conquer, he wanted to remake the world, leaving nothing but ashes and Aryan dominance in his wake. So if you hear anyone comparing Hitler with anyone else, just send them this video. And please like and subscribe to Valor and Vice for more videos like this.